The year was 2135, and Earth was preparing for what could only be described as the most pivotal moment in human history. First contact with an alien species. The Zalorians had arrived without warning, their massive starships appearing in the skies above every major city on the planet. They didn't come with lasers or bombs, as many feared, but with a silent dominance that was almost more terrifying. Their ships, dark, sleek, and city-sized, hovered in the atmosphere, blocking out the sun and casting immense shadows over the world below. Governments across the globe scrambled to respond. Earth had prepared for this moment, though not well enough. Every major military force from the United States to China to the European Union stood on high alert, their eyes fixed on the alien armada in orbit. The global network of satellites was jammed, and for the first time in decades, the world united under one command. For the first time in history, humanity faced an external force far beyond its understanding. When the Zalorians finally descended, it was not in the fashion of conquerors, nor as enlightened explorers hoping to learn from a younger race. Instead, they arrived with the demeanor of aristocrats, aloof and indifferent. Their ships opened seamlessly, revealing shimmering portals from which the aliens emerged. The Zalorians themselves were nothing like the creatures humans had imagined. They were tall, standing at least 7 feet, with thin, elongated limbs and iridescent skin that shimmered like oil on water. Their eyes, glowing with an ethereal light, lacked pupils and seemed to reflect an intellect far superior to anything humanity had known. Their leader, Shanir, stepped forward first, his presence commanding and regal, with an air of superiority so thick it was almost palpable. Earth's leaders watched as Shanir approached, flanked by his delegation of similarly imposing figures. In front of them, humanity had assembled its greatest achievements, a show of military might that had taken centuries to build. Tanks, fighter jets, missiles, and even the newest hypersonic weapons lined up on the tarmac of an airbase just outside Washington, D.C., where the first formal encounter was to take place. But Zalorians were not impressed. Shanir stopped before the vast display of military hardware and cocked his head, his luminescent eyes scanning the equipment with what appeared to be disdain. The silence of the moment was broken by a sound that none of Earth's diplomats or military personnel expected: laughter. A light, melodic chuckle escaped Shanir's lips. It grew, echoing across the assembled crowd of Earth's officials, who exchanged confused and uneasy glances. The Zalorian leader motioned to one of his companions, speaking in a language that, though unintelligible to humans, carried a tone of ridicule. A small, handheld device activated, translating his words in real time for all to hear. "Is this it?" Shanir asked, gesturing at the tanks and jets as though they were little more than playthings. "Is this what you call your defense? Your weapons of war?" Another round of laughter followed, this time from the entire Zalorian entourage. Earth's leaders, from generals to prime ministers, stood in stunned silence. This was supposed to be a historic moment, a dignified exchange between two intelligent species. Instead, the aliens were mocking them. "Our shields could vaporize your missiles before they even launch," Shanir continued, his tone dripping with condescension. "These crude machines are what you rely on for protection? Your projectile-based weaponry, how quaint." The arrogance in his voice was unbearable. Cameras from every major news network broadcast the scene live across the world. Billions of people watched in real time as the Zalorians laughed at humanity's most sophisticated technology. What had been expected to be a historic meeting of minds was turning into an intergalactic humiliation. Human scientists and diplomats tried to regain control of the situation. Dr. Eleanor Chen, one of Earth's foremost experts in interstellar physics, stepped forward to speak, her voice calm and measured despite the growing frustration around her. "We come in peace," she said, "as rehearsed, and seek knowledge, not conflict. Surely your civilization has much to teach us." Shanir turned his glowing eyes on her, his expression unreadable but his amusement still apparent. "Knowledge? You seek knowledge?" He paused for a moment, as though the concept was foreign to him. What could we possibly teach a species that still relies on bullets to wage war? The weeks following the Zalorians' arrival were tense. Earth's governments continued their uneasy dance with the alien visitors, each encounter laced with a thin veneer of diplomacy, barely concealing the humiliation they all felt. Engineer and his entourage, now permanent fixtures on Earth, flaunted their technological superiority at every opportunity, showing no regard for humanity's growing resentment. World leaders convened emergency meetings in secret bunkers, desperate to find a solution to the problem no one had anticipated. As the Zolorians mocked Earth's primitive military, scientists and engineers worked around the clock in labs hidden deep underground. Humanity's finest minds were tasked with a near impossible goal: to find a way to close the overwhelming gap between Earth's technology and that of the Zolorians. Dr. Eleanor Chen, still the face of Earth's diplomatic efforts, found herself at the center of these frantic discussions. She had argued for peaceful negotiation, for the pursuit of knowledge, but the Zolorians' constant condescension was making diplomacy impossible. The last straw came during a public demonstration in Beijing, where Zolorian scientists disassembled and reassembled a Chinese stealth bomber in seconds, only to laugh at its antiquated mechanics. It was a globally broadcast spectacle that drove home one painful truth. To the Zolorians, humanity was little more than a primitive, backwater species, but Dr. Chen wasn't ready to give up. In a conference room deep within NORAD, a meeting was taking place that would change the course of history. Earth's top military officials, scientists, and diplomats gathered around a holographic display, all focused on one question: could humanity strike back? General Marcus Graves, commander of the U.S. Space Command, sat at the head of the table, his face grim. "They're underestimating us," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "They laugh at our weapons, but they've never seen them in action. I think it's time we remind these Zolorians that even the smallest of animals can still bite." "Doctor," Chen frowned, her arms crossed as she considered the ramifications. "You're suggesting an attack? We have no idea what their capabilities really are. One wrong move, and they could wipe us out." "Maybe, but maybe they won't," General Graves responded. "The Zolorians have been here for weeks, and despite all their boasting, they haven't made a single hostile move. They see us as harmless. If we act now, we have a window to change the narrative. We need to show them that we aren't as weak as they think." The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the general's words. The idea of striking the Zolorians seemed absurd at first, suicidal, even. But as the days passed and the humiliation continued, the notion started to gain traction. Earth's leaders, tired of playing the role of the underdog, began to see the merit in General Graves's plan. If they could catch the Zolorians off guard, even just once, it might force them to rethink their view of humanity. "We don't have to start a war," General Graves continued, "but we can issue a challenge. Something simple, something that forces them to respect us." Dr. Chen raised an eyebrow. "A challenge? What kind of challenge?" General Graves smiled grimly. "We challenge them to a test of arms. They've mocked our weapons, so let's see how theirs hold up. We'll ask for a demonstration, one-on-one. Their technology against ours. That's insane." "Dr. Chen said, shaking her head. "If they accept, we could be annihilated, and if they refuse, Graves interrupted, we win. They'll have shown weakness. For all their advanced technology, the Zolorians are still creatures with egos. We need to exploit that." The room murmured in agreement. It was a risky plan, but Earth had nothing left to lose. Humanity had been belittled and demeaned at every turn. This could be the chance they needed to regain some measure of dignity. "Dr. Chen sighed. "And what if they don't refuse? What if they accept?" General Graves's eyes darkened. "Then we'll show them what our primitive arms can do." The challenge was issued a week later. In a carefully worded broadcast transmitted through every available medium, Earth formally invited the Zolorians to a demonstration of military prowess. It was framed as a peaceful exhibition, a test of strength, skill, and technology between two civilizations. The Zolorians, in their arrogance, could not resist. Chenier himself responded, his voice full of amusement. "A test of arms," he said, his message broadcast across the globe. "Very well. Humans, we accept your challenge. We will show you once and for all the futility of your primitive ways." The stage was set. A barren desert in Nevada was chosen as the location for the duel. Far from any population centers, both Earth and the Zolorians agreed on the terms. Each side would choose a single weapon system. The demonstration would be limited to a small-scale conflict. No orbital strikes, no overwhelming force. It was meant to be a showcase, not an annihilation. The Zolorians, predictably, chose one of their sleek, hyper-advanced combat drones, capable of moving at unimaginable speeds and equipped with energy weapons that could vaporize matter. The drone hovered silently in the desert, waiting for its opponent. Humanity, on the other hand, made a very different choice. General Graves had insisted on something simple, something that had been the backbone of warfare on Earth for centuries. A single tank, an Abrams M1A2, upgraded with the latest armor and munitions technology, rolled out onto the desert sands to face the Zolorian drone. Once again, Chenier laughed. A tank? You dare challenge us with a relic of your ancient wars? But this time, humanity was not cowed by the laughter. As the tank rumbled into position, the world watched with bated breath. The challenge had been made, and now there was no turning back. Soldiers and civilians alike gathered around screens, radios, and live streams, waiting for the moment that would decide Earth's fate. The duel began with a pulse of light as the Zolorian drone fired its first shot. A bolt of energy lanced toward the Abrams, so fast that it seemed impossible for the tank to survive. But survive it did. The upgraded armor absorbed the blast, deflecting the energy harmlessly into the sand. The Zolorians, for the first time, seemed surprised. The Abrams responded. Its turret swiveled, the massive cannon locking onto the drone. With a deafening roar, the tank fired. The shot hit its mark. To the shock of everyone watching, the Zolorian drone exploded in a brilliant flash of fire and light. The cheers that erupted from Earth's military command centers could be heard for miles. Humanity had done it. They had fired a shot, one single shot, and destroyed a piece of technology that was supposed to be far beyond anything they could comprehend. Shanir's mocking laughter was gone. For the first time since their arrival, the Zolorian stood in silence, their arrogance shattered. Behind him, his second in command, a Zolorian with shimmering blue skin, gestured to Earth's satellites, those that still worked, and said, "We have seen your history. We have observed your wars, your endless violence. And this," he motioned to the tanks again, "is your answer to everything." Humanity had never felt so small. The Zolorians, with their advanced technology and disdain for what they saw as Earth's primitive ways, continued to mock and belittle. They floated above cities like gods, untouchable, unapproachable, and smug in their superiority. They spoke of weapons that could destroy entire planets with a thought and technology that allowed them to fold space itself. Earth, by comparison, seemed to them no more than a backward, undeveloped world stuck in the dark ages of interstellar evolution. The world's media, always hungry for spectacle, turned the Zolorian mockery into a global event. Clips of Shanir's laughter at Earth's military paraded across screens, with newscasters speculating on whether humanity stood a chance in the grand scheme of the cosmos. The people were both fascinated and infuriated by their new visitors. Some marveled at the sheer scale of the Zolorian technology, while others seethed at the insults hurled at humanity's pride. Behind closed doors, Earth's leaders argued over how to respond. Some called for diplomacy, while others, incensed by the mockery, demanded a show of force. Yet, deep down, they all knew the truth. They didn't stand a chance. Humanity had achieved so much, but it was nothing compared to the might of the Zolorians, or so it seemed. As the alien arrogance continued to escalate, a quiet, burning frustration began to spread across Earth. Humanity, once cowed by the Zolorians' advanced technology, was growing restless. The aliens may have been laughing now, but behind the scenes, a plan was starting to form. A plan to remind the Zolorians that underestimating humans could be their greatest mistake. And so, the challenge that would change everything was born. The destruction of the Zolorian drone sent shockwaves through both Earth and the Zolorian armada. On Earth, celebrations erupted in cities across the globe. Military bases, command centers, and even small-town bars were filled with cheers of disbelief and triumph. Humanity had done the impossible. They had struck a blow against an advanced alien species that had belittled and humiliated them for weeks. The message was clear. Humans weren't to be underestimated. Dr. Eleanor Chen, watching the footage from a war room at NORAD, felt a surge of mixed emotions, relief that the plan had worked, but also fear for what might come next. The Zalorians were silent now, but they were undoubtedly regrouping. She knew that Chenier wouldn't take this lightly. The world's military leaders, emboldened by the success, were already discussing the next steps. Some wanted to escalate, pushing the advantage while they had it. Others were more cautious, fearing retaliation. General Graves, the architect of the plan, leaned against a table, arms crossed, listening to the debate with a stern expression. "We've sent them a message," Graves finally said, cutting through the noise. "Now we wait. We don't poke the bear unless we know we can handle the consequences." But waiting proved to be the hardest part. For hours, the Zalorians remained eerily quiet. Chenier, who had been so quick to mock and taunt, had vanished from public broadcasts. Earth's news network speculated wildly. Were the aliens plotting revenge? Were they impressed? Perhaps even fearful? As the hours dragged on, tension mounted. Dr. Chen couldn't help but feel the weight of the world on her shoulders. She had been the advocate for peaceful cooperation, the one who had believed in diplomacy. But diplomacy had been reduced to a challenge of force, and while humanity had won the first round, she knew that wars weren't fought with just one battle. She found herself pacing the hallways of NORAD, replaying the events of the duel in her mind, unable to shake the looming uncertainty. Just as the world began to settle into an uneasy calm, the Zalorians broke their silence. A communication from Chenier appeared simultaneously across every screen on Earth. Televisions, phones, billboards, even the holographic projectors the Zalorians had left in key cities. His once arrogant demeanor was now replaced with something much darker. The transmission showed Chenier standing in front of the shimmering backdrop of his mothership. His eyes cold, his voice devoid of the mocking tone that had accompanied every message before. "Humans," he began, "you have made your point. We underestimated you." For a brief moment, the world held its breath, hoping for an admission of respect, perhaps even an offer of peace. But Chenier's next words dashed those hopes. "This victory you claim," he said, "is a fleeting one. You may have destroyed one of our drones, but do not think for a moment that this proves anything. You are still primitives, stumbling through the darkness. What you have done is merely irritate us. Nothing more." The screen shifted, showing images of Zalorian warships hanging ominously above Earth's atmosphere. Their sleek, metallic forms glinted in the sunlight, a silent reminder of the power they held. "If it is war you seek," Chenier continued, "then we will oblige. But we will not fight you as equals. We will show you the true meaning of despair." The broadcast ended abruptly, leaving the world in stunned silence. Humanity's moment of triumph had turned into a chilling prelude to something far worse. Inside NORAD, the mood had shifted dramatically. General Graves slammed his fist onto the table, frustration etched on his face. "Damn it," he muttered. "I knew this was coming." Dr. Chen, her heart pounding, took a deep breath. "We need to be prepared for whatever comes next. If the Zalorians are planning a retaliation, it won't be a small-scale skirmish. They'll throw everything they have at us." "I'm not so sure," General Graves said after a pause, his eyes narrowing. "They could have obliterated us from orbit the moment we destroyed that drone. But they didn't." "Why?" Dr. Chen thought about it. "Maybe they want to make an example out of us. Show the galaxy that even the smallest resistance will be crushed." "Maybe," Graves replied. "Or maybe they're stalling, trying to intimidate us without committing to full-on war." The room buzzed with discussions of next steps. Earth's military forces were put on high alert, every defense system primed and ready. Scientists worked to analyze the data from the duel, trying to understand the Zalorian technology and how they might counter it. The Abrams tank's success had been a victory, but it wasn't enough. They needed to build on that momentum, fast. 2 days later, Chenier delivered his next message, this time directly to Earth's leaders. The transmission wasn't broadcast to the public, but the content was equally chilling. "You have one final chance to surrender," Chenier said, his voice cutting through the conference rooms of every major government. "If you hand over control of your planet, We will allow you to exist under our rule. Resist, and we will bring you to your knees. You have 24 hours. The ultimatum sent Earth's leaders into a frenzy. Surrender meant the complete loss of sovereignty, a life under alien occupation. Resistance, on the other hand, could lead to the extinction of the human race. Dr. Chen, attending the emergency UN summit in New York, watched as debates raged between the world's most powerful figures. Everyone was trying to weigh the risks, but no one knew the right answer. General Graves, who had accompanied her to the summit, remained stoic throughout the discussions. When the room finally quieted, he stood and addressed the assembly. "Giving up is not an option," he said, his voice unwavering. "We've already shown that we can fight back. The Zalorians are betting on fear, but fear is only effective if we let it control us." Dr. Chen stepped forward, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders again. "We need to consider all possibilities. There might be another way, diplomacy, but with leverage. If we can show them that they don't have the complete upper hand, we might be able to negotiate something other than total surrender." General Graves nodded. "Agreed, but we need to act fast. In 24 hours, they'll be coming, and this time, they won't be holding back." The countdown had begun. As Earth's leaders prepared for the worst, military strategists worked around the clock. Hidden weapons, experimental technologies, and tactics that had never seen the light of day were suddenly being thrust into the spotlight. Every nation mobilized, fortifying cities, moving critical infrastructure underground, and preparing for an all-out assault from the skies. But humanity wasn't just going to sit back and wait for the inevitable. In secret, Earth's brightest scientists had been working on a last-ditch project, something that might just level the playing field. A weapon that combined human ingenuity with salvaged Zalorian tech. It wasn't finished yet, but if they could complete it before the deadline, it might just be enough to turn the tide. With 12 hours left, Earth sent its response, no surrender. The clock ticked closer to the 24-hour deadline, and Earth braced for the onslaught. In every corner of the planet, civilians huddled in underground shelters, while soldiers, pilots, and scientists took their positions in defense zones. The world's airwaves were filled with speeches of hope, courage, and defiance. Humanity had chosen to fight. At NORAD, Dr. Eleanor Chen paced anxiously as General Graves issued final orders to military forces around the globe. The weapon, the secret project combining human and Zalorian technology, was nearly ready. It was a prototype, untested, but it was the only chance humanity had to avoid total destruction. The global defense plan was straightforward. Delay the Zalorians long enough for the new weapon, codenamed Prometheus, to be operational. If Prometheus worked, it wouldn't just defend Earth, it would give humanity the ability to strike back against the alien fleet. But everything hinged on the element of surprise. When the Zalorian ships began descending into Earth's atmosphere, the scale of their invasion became terrifyingly clear. Hundreds of warships blotted out the sky, their dark forms looming over every major city. The sight alone sent chills down the spines of even the bravest soldiers. Shanir's voice echoed across the planet again, this time cold and devoid of any condescension. "You have chosen death. So be it." The first attack came swiftly. Plasma beams rained down from the Zalorian ships, targeting military bases and defense installations. Explosions lit up the horizon in all directions, and Earth's defense forces scrambled to hold the line. Anti-aircraft systems, fighter jets, and ground-based missile launchers fired desperately into the sky, but the Zalorian ships were too advanced, too well shielded. The humans were outmatched. Yet, the resilience of Earth's forces surprised even Shanir. Military leaders, well aware of their technological disadvantage, had set traps, decoys, guerrilla tactics, and unpredictable strikes. Zalorian drones were lured into ambushes. Ships were damaged by makeshift EMPs, and the aliens were forced to fight harder than they had expected. Still, it wasn't enough. The alien fleet pressed onward, relentless. Inside NORAD, Dr. Chen worked furiously with the team of engineers to finish Prometheus. General Graves stood over her shoulder, eyes fixed on the holographic display of the alien invasion. "How much longer?" he asked, his voice strained but steady. "Minutes," Chen replied, sweat beading on her forehead. We're almost there. Outside, the battle grew more desperate. Cities like New York, London, and Beijing were now the front lines. As Zalorian ground forces began to descend, soldiers engaged in fierce firefights with alien troops, their advanced weapons devastating human forces. Yet, despite their losses, humanity fought on. Every inch of ground was contested, every building defended. Earth would not go down without a fight. In the skies above, a Zalorian battleship broke from formation, targeting NORAD directly. It was a calculated move. Destroying the command center would cripple Earth's defenses. Alarms blared throughout the base as the ship's plasma cannons charged. We've got incoming, Graves barked. Chen. We need that weapon now! Chen's fingers flew over the control panel. She glanced at the screen displaying Prometheus, a sleek, experimental satellite armed with a hybrid energy weapon that harnessed both human and alien tech. It was the culmination of humanity's most brilliant minds, and now it was Earth's last hope. Got it, Chen exclaimed, her heart racing. Prometheus is online. Fire, Graves ordered. Without hesitation, the world held its breath. High above the planet, Prometheus powered up. The satellite hummed with energy as it locked onto the Zalorian fleet. A beam of brilliant blue light erupted from the satellite, cutting through the atmosphere and striking the Zalorian battleship headed for NORAD. In an instant, the ship's shields disintegrated, and the hull exploded in a cascade of fire and debris. The shockwave of the blast rippled across the battlefield, stunning both human and Zalorian forces. But Prometheus wasn't finished. It continued to fire, unleashing devastating energy beams at the alien fleet. One by one, Zalorian ships were obliterated, their advanced shields proving useless against the new weapon. For the first time since the invasion began, the Zalorians were on the defensive, inside his flagship. Chenier watched in disbelief as his once invincible fleet was decimated. He had underestimated humanity again, and this time, the cost was catastrophic. No, he muttered, his eyes narrowing in rage. This cannot be. But it was. Prometheus had turned the tide of the battle. Earth's forces, emboldened by the sudden shift in power, launched a counteroffensive. Fighter jets and missiles swarmed the remaining Zalorian ships, while ground forces pushed back the alien troops. The Zalorians, caught off guard, faltered. In the command center, General Graves clenched his fist, a rare smile crossing his face. We did it, he said quietly. Dr. Chen, exhausted but relieved, leaned back in her chair. For now, she said, her voice cautious. But we still have to deal with Chenier. As if on cue, a transmission came through. Chenier's face appeared once more, his expression hardened by defeat but still defiant. Humans, he spat. You have earned your victory today, but know this is not the end. The Zalorian Empire will not forget this insult. Graves stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Neither will we. Chenier, you came here thinking you could take us without a fight. But you were wrong. If you come back, we'll be ready. Chenier's eyes flickered with contempt, but also something new, respect. Perhaps, he said, his tone less venomous than before. Perhaps your species is not as primitive as I thought. This is not the last you will hear of us, but for now we withdraw. And with that, the transmission cut off. The remaining Zalorian ships pulled back, retreating into space. Earth had won, but the victory was bittersweet. The cost had been high, cities lay in ruins, countless lives lost, but humanity had survived. Against all odds, they had stood up to an alien empire and emerged victorious. In the aftermath, the world began to rebuild, but Earth was no longer the same. The knowledge that they were no longer alone in the universe, that powerful civilizations existed beyond the stars, had changed everything. Dr. Chen stood outside the NORAD base, looking up at the sky, now free of Zalorian ships. General Graves joined her, his hands clasped behind his back. What now? She asked, her voice quiet. Graves smiled faintly. Now? Now we get ready, because next time, when they come back, we'll be even stronger. Chen nodded, the weight of the future settling on her shoulders. Humanity had proven itself, but in the vastness of space, They knew this was just the beginning of a much larger story, and as the stars twinkled overhead, Earth prepared for whatever came next.